Good day, good day, good day. Good morning to you. I am extremely excited about being here today on Healing Takes a Village. It indeed takes a village in this healing process. It is not easy. It is a process that you have to find yourself trusting in. And I am here today as a speaker to speak with you about how do we begin that process, talking about the inner child, the inner hurt, the inner trauma. How do we overcome those first steps and start the process to healing? I myself have been on a healing journey here now for soon to be 4 years. I started my healing journey in October of 2021. So, just to tell you a little background about me, again, my name is Sunshine Lewis. I am a mother of two. I'm a nurse, I'm a CNA instructor. I'm also a motivational speaker, mentor, author of two books, and I got two more on the way that I'm working on. My passion definitely is mental health and allowing those individuals who have been stagnant in their mental health, in their spiritual space, in their emotional space, learning how to overcome that stagnation and beginning to move forward in your healing. So today I again welcome you into this space. I ask that you will find comfort here with me. I ask that you will allow yourself to have an open mind, an open heart, and be willing to break those chains. I am a chain breaker. I started this process again out in October 2021 with my chain breaker meetings that I wanted to open up a space for myself and my members to come in and be able to openly talk about the things that we've gone through in life. Because what I did realize was I had all of these members and we were moving around in this space together, but yet we didn't know each other. We didn't know how to properly communicate with one another. We didn't know how to properly assist one another when we were going through things. And so when I started this chain breaker luncheon, it was simply for us to just come in and have open communication. I explained to everyone who asked me about the chain breaker and how it started that for me, it was like an emotional exorcism. It was like a detachment being released of that thing that I had held within me for so long. I was used to bottling things up inside of me. I was used to telling myself that I'm strong enough to endure these things. It's okay for me to bury these things deep within myself so that I can continue to move forward, that I can continue to show up as this person of strength, this person who is easily able to brush things off, to overlook things, to move past the hurt, all those things. But what I was really doing was burying myself deeper and deeper and deeper into this pit of depression, into this pit of why. I kept taking myself down this rabbit hole of when is this all going to be over? It was overwhelming me in one aspect, and on the other end, I was steady burying these things deep within myself because I didn't want the people around me to see that I was struggling with something mentally, spiritually. Um, because obviously they could not recognize it physically, the things that it was causing me, the lack of sleep, the inability to eat properly, a lot of things. It was affecting me in the physical realm, but yet those close to me were not able to see it because they were used to me being the stronghold. They were used to me being the backbone. They were used to me being the advisor, the mentor, and all those things. And I had become comfortable with putting myself on the back burner so that I could continue to show up for those people. Um, and then came October. October of 2021, I sat in this room that I originally had purchased to host a dinner party for myself. And prior to my birthday, my niece lost her 1 year old daughter at the hands of her father. And this spiraled me into a place where I wanted to question God, but God had been so good to me. He had brought me out of so many places, so many pits, so many depressive things until I couldn't find myself able to question him. And so, because I wasn't able to question him, I didn't have the audacity to question him. I find myself shutting down, going within myself, trying to figure out how do I release this pressure? How do I release this pain without being able to ask why it was given to me in the first place. For a long time, I had ran around and I could always see this black silhouette of a little girl with pigtails, and I never knew why. I just knew that this was something that I carried within me that I seen often, and I never knew why until October of 2021. I sat in this room and I was having discussions. I had invited my father, who is a minister. I'm also a preacher's kid at the current moment. So I invited my father in because I had no idea who was going to show up, but I wanted my father to be there in case there was males that showed up so that they would feel comfortable in the setting to be able to discuss things that they were going through. But what ended up happening was God had set the room for me to be able to begin to release, to begin to release those things that had kept me bound, those things that stayed in the back of my head that caused me to have these attitude problems, that caused me to be short tempered, that caused me to have a lack of patience, a lack of peace, and at times, even a lack of perseverance. And I found myself sitting in that room explaining to my father, who I had originally called for the men. I found myself sitting there in that room, finally giving a voice to the things that I felt towards my father that had dictated things in my life and the way I thought, the way I moved, the way I processed a lot of different things because of things that happened to me when I was a child. One of those things was the fact that I had never got over the separation of my mother and my father. Another thing was that I cherished my father. I thought very highly of my father, and that at some point in my life, my father had started to disappoint me. He had started to call and say that he was going to show up, and he didn't show up. And so these things embedded a deep seed of hatred within me because he was somebody that I loved. He was somebody that I cherished. And at that moment, I felt like that if the person who gave me life wasn't going to love me properly, wasn't going to communicate with me, wasn't going to lead me and show me the way, was so easy to disappoint me, so easy to turn their back on me, so easy to abandon me, then what was it? What was it that I was supposed to expect from the rest of the world? So by the time I was a teenager, I was nowhere near open minded to the fact that someone outside of my mother and father could help me. So I hit the ground running in survival mode, and I kept running until I ran into myself on October 2021 in my first chain breaker meeting. In that meeting, that is when I was able to identify this black silhouette of a child that I had continuously seen in my head. It was me. It was a 6-year-old little girl who had went to school with a mother and a father and a brother, and was then taken out of that situation and had my entire life altered. It was me. It was a little girl that I had buried down, deep down inside of me, that had been hurt, that had been broken, that had been abandoned. She had completely lost her identity, which was the reason why I couldn't see her eyes. I couldn't see her smile. I couldn't hear her pain because she was a silhouette of what was. The morning that I got out of bed, got dressed with my brother, and left my house with a family behind and came back to a single mother. I had a mom who was single now, a single mother. My dad was in one place, we were in another place, and from that moment, I never felt safe again. I never felt heard. I never felt seen. I never felt understood from that day moving forward. And here I was sitting in that room in October telling my dad about all of those things that had transpired in my mind, in my heart, in my body, in my soul, that had caused me to become this person who I did not want to be. At times, a person I did not recognize because my traumas and the triggers that life was throwing back at me were bigger. They were bigger than my praise, my positivity, my perseverance. They held me back. They chained me to a lot of things. And that is when I realized that I wanted to break those chains. I no longer wanted to be attached to those things that were going to keep me bound. I wanted to break up with depression. I wanted to break up with those emotional outbursts that I could not control. I wanted to separate myself. And the definition of a breakup is a separation of something into sections. I knew that in order for me to heal, I had to separate these things that had happened to me down into sectors so that I could be able to identify those things, be able to give a voice to those things so that I could release, I could remove them from those places that they had buried themselves deep down within me, and that I could detach my feet from that stagnant place that had held me in position to where I could not move, that I did not believe that there was another place outside of this place that was good enough for me to reside in. It was a place that would provide me that peace. It was a place that would break those chains, that would allow me to take accountability for those things that I could take accountability for, and to give God everything else. Because he said it more than once that the battle is not mine, but yet and still I was trying to fight it. I had told myself that I was strong enough to endure even these things that God had already told me was not mine to fight. In that room, I realized that I was trying to be my own God, that I was trying to have strength that he told me I did not have to have, because the battle was not mine. I had to sit there that day and realize that I had failed that little girl in me. I remember a friend of mine saying that you have to kill her off. And then God told me no. So she said, kill her off. And again, God said, no, you aren't supposed to kill her off. You need to set her free. Again, I say, I realized that the reason why I had been seeing this silhouette of a little girl with pigtails was because I had lost my identity. I had drowned myself in this hurt. I had drowned myself in this pain. I drowned myself in these things that were keeping me from being the best version of myself. So what I had now become was someone who was very, very aggressive, very I was very impatient. I was very 0 to 60 real quick. I was very, you better not do that to me. I was very, a lot of things that were not of me. And it was because I wanted to place the blame on me not being able to be the best version of me because of these hurts, because of these pains, because of my mom, because of my dad, because of this, because of that. But what part of that could I have taken accountability for? I could have trusted God that he would not put more on me that I could bear. I could have trusted God that if he would go into the fire with Meshach, Abednego, and Shadrach, that he would do it for me. I could have trusted God that when I was in the lion's den, that he could get me out. I could have simply just trusted God. But instead, I had put my expectation in my mom. I had put my expectation in my dad. I had put my expectation in all these things that I thought were going to make it better, except God, the one who created the heavens and the earth. And I realized that I had more power than I had given myself credit for. I had more power than I was taking accountability for. I had more leverage than I thought I had because I had God, a man that have never left me. He's never forsaken me. He's forgiven me. He's been my way maker. He's been my miracle worker. He's been everything that he said that he would be. But yet and still, I had stayed stagnant and broken for so many years. It took a prophet to come into one of my meetings, and he was a teacher as well, and he says that I like to give my students at least 15 minutes out of the first moments of class to get themselves together, because I want them to meet me where I need them to be when I began to teach. I became very interested in what he was saying when he began to say that. And he drew this figure on the board. And right when he began to draw it, I kept seeing that silhouette. And it became more and more profound to me because I began to resonate at what God was showing me in that moment. And how could I get people to see the bigger picture of what is going on when we allow our inner hurt, our inner trauma to get embedded within ourselves, and that child that needs us to help release, to be freed, to be able to let go, to have a voice, to speak up, to be happy, to enjoy life. How would I explain that? And then God gave me this image by way of this prophet. In this image, you see a large figure of a person, and then you see a smaller figure. I want for you to write down your current age. This large figure is going to represent your current age. This smaller figure right here, this is going to represent whatever age, when you get upset, when you're hurt, when you're disappointed, when you've been abandoned, when you're broke, and when you're depressed. What is that age mentally that you go back to? Could it possibly be 15 when your mother said that she was going to do something that meant something very important to you, and then she didn't do it? Could it be that time that you needed your father and he abandoned you? Could it be the time when your friend told your most deepest, darkest secrets? What is that time? So I want you to write your current age. And for me, when I started this healing journey, I was, I believe, 38 years old. And my age of the person inside of me was 6. So my hurt age was 6. 6 is when I got on the bus and went to school, and I had a mother and father in a family dynamic, and then I came home and I did not have that anymore. And my trauma, every time I was triggered, it took me back to the fact that I wasn't explained why. I didn't have any reason. And so therefore I grew up to be a person who, anyone who felt like I did not deserve the truth, that I wasn't able to handle the truth, that would anger me, that would trigger me to send me back to this 6-year-old. When I thought about the times that my father said he was coming and he didn't show up, it took me back. When I thought about the time that someone told me that I would never be anything in my adulthood, when I felt like someone was saying the same thing, it took me back. So what is this age that you are going back to? What is this age that when you're triggered in these different emotions, you're going back to? What is your age? Again, for me, my current age at the time that we started Chain Breakers was 38. And my hurt age was 6. And so when you subtract 6 from 38, that is 32 years that I was hindered by that pain, that I was hindered by getting off that bus and no longer living at that address where my father resided, that I was hindered by how did I go from feeling safe and secure to this place of the unknown, to where I'm scared, I'm fearful, I don't trust my own voice. And then I realized, in order for me to move forward, in order for me to free that little black silhouette, I had to release. I had to find a way to find peace. I had to find a way to trust that God will never leave nor forsake me. I had to find a way to open up that door and give that little girl a way out. I had to find a way to give a voice to say that, hey, you hurt me. Because I had allowed those things to hinder me for so long. It was now time to set those things free, to set myself free. And that is what happened on that sweet, sweet day of October 2021, when I decided to release myself of that 32-year curse that had kept me bound. That I decided I needed to identify with that pain. I needed to give it a voice, because as long as I did not give a voice to it, it was going to find itself within me. And then God also gave me a vision one day. And I told myself as I thought about it, I want God to come in and I want him to reside within me. But then he told me, how can I get in there when everywhere in your house, just imagine yourself as a house, in every room that you have within your house, you have things hidden in the closet. The pain that you encountered at 6, the disappointment you encountered at 15 is in the living room. The words that were told to you that you couldn't release since you've been 10. All those things are hidden in the cupboards. They're hidden in the closets. They're overflowing in your bathtub. And God says, where is it? Am I to go in here? Where can I stand? Where can I sit? Where can I? Where do I belong in your house? Are you willing to get rid of some things so that you can allow God to step in? That you can allow God to step in those situations that you've held on within yourself since maybe you were a little girl, maybe since you were a teenager, maybe since 5 years ago, maybe since yesterday. My dad asked me one time if everywhere we went we had a bubble above our head that told our deepest, darkest secrets and everyone could read them, what would you think about that? I made my decision on that day that I want to be brave enough to tell my own story. I want to be brave enough to take accountability for what parts I played in my journey, because I don't want to allow someone else to have chains on me that keeps me from moving forward, that limits me, that hinders me. I am more than just a conqueror. In order for me to stay more than just a conqueror, I have to continue to let go of the things that keep me bound and that keep me from God and that keep me from trusting in what he is, who he is, and what he can do in my life. I am and you are more than just a conqueror. So will you look on the inside of yourself? Will you focus on that inner child and allow her to have a voice so that you can release and you can move forward? Will you? Check out my platforms. Follow me on all my socials. And indeed, if you need an inspirational book, I have the Sun and the Moon devotional you can find on Amazon, as well as Gumroad email ebook download. Also, I have Mama's Baby. Mama Baby talks about those childhood traumas. It gives a voice to the children who have just allowed those things to stay embedded within themselves and decided that I'm going to carry these things to the grave, even if they're heavy, even if they hold me back, even if I live in this life and I don't truly become who I am destined to be. I would carry this weight. Why do we protect the predators? And why don't we stand for ourselves? Question yourself. Give yourself a chance. Because every day we have a choice. Today, what will you choose? I love you.